guys. So good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are tuning in from, and welcome to our July webinar series brought to you by CPS HR Consulting, your partner for HR in the public sector. In today's webinar, we'll be diving into the powerful partnership for insights where AI meets data, presented in collaboration with Memory Spring by Michael Green, CPS HR trainer and founder of Memory Spring, and Bud James, leadership trainer and VP of curriculum development for Memory Spring and also CPS HR trainer. Before we kickstart the session, just some quick housekeeping notes. So this webinar is being recorded and will be accessible for replay later today and tomorrow. We will post the recording on YouTube and the CPS HR webinar webpage for your convenience. There's also a handout for this webinar, which we will be posting in the chat. That will also be posted on the webpage as well. So be on the lookout for that link. All attendees will be in listen-only mode to ensure the best audio quality for everybody. Please feel free to use the chat feature to engage in conversation and share your thoughts with one another. If a question pops up during the webinar, don't shy away. Use the Q&A feature to send it in, and we'll tackle as many as we can towards the end, time permitting. Now, without further delay, I'm going to hand it over to Michael and Bud to enlighten us on AI and data. Take it away.
All right. Good morning, everybody. We're excited to be here. We're going to go Mach 2 with our hair on fire between now and 12 o'clock, working on data to diamonds. Number of different things going to be fast and furious. My name is Michael Green, and along with Dr. Bud James, we are going to be working on this program and giving you insight into Data to Diamonds program. To give you a little bit about my background, I actually have co-founded 2 training companies over the last 30 years. In the mid-90s, founded Delta 4, a company that does training in the areas of leadership, teamwork, and sales performance. And in 2004, founded this company, Memory Spring, to help people with their memory, brain health, personal productivity, and online performance. And so we're going to be leveraging those elements. And also, we have been doing work with CPS HR since 2005. So given that, if you have not already, the link is in chat to get the Data to Diamonds handout. Dr. Bud James, have you put it in chat yet?
It is there. And Marissa will repost it.
All right.
It's been posted.
Well, let's look at the agenda for the day today. We're doing welcome and introductions. I'm going to give you a more formal intro on Dr. Bud James as we get going. We're doing Data to Diamonds course overview, highlights of each class, hands-on with Gen AI, and then we're going to do a class wrap-up. Now you start asking yourself, why is this course so important? Why is the Data to Diamonds program so important, and what's in it for you? Number one, it allows you and your team members to develop proficiency in 3 Microsoft 365 tools used for analysis to better gather, analyze, and present data effectively. Number 2, you gain expertise in generative AI and learn to open AI's ChatGPT, DALL-E, Microsoft Copilot, and Google Gemini. And then you develop a strong ethical foundation so you can use the tools and skills of data analytics responsibly and ethically, and then present data convincingly to propose solutions and get buy-in to your ideas and inform decision makers. And you receive a certification in data analytics to enhance your productivity and advance your career. I mean, you start taking a look at today's environment. This is where it's at. Data is where it's at. AI is where it's at. And it's not going away. It's just going to get more intense and more integral into everybody's role and jobs in not only HR, but in corporate and public agencies every day. And so being ahead of the wave is extremely important to make a huge difference in your career. So given that, let me introduce Dr. Bud James. Dr. Bud James actually grew up in San Diego, went to the military, and after a highly successful career in Spec Ops, He went into high tech. He's got background with companies like Unisys, Oracle, BEA. As a matter of fact, he's also the co-founder or one of the co-founders of MySpace. And he's got also background in divinity and counseling. So when you start thinking about who you want to learn from when it comes to data, AI, this is the person, right? There's only a handful of people that can actually really get their hands around it and be able to communicate and teach it in a dynamic and engaging way. Given that, let's give an excited, enthusiastic, engaging welcome for Dr. Bud James.
Gee, thank you for that commercial, Michael. I appreciate that. All right, let's have a little bit of fun. First of all, let's take a look at for those of you who joined us early, you were able to do our fun with forms. Here are the results. So our questions were, what's been your experience with data analytics? And we see that when we look at the left side, I like to look at these graphs left to right. So we look at the left side first. We've got some here. So 35% of them said very little, and about another third, some use, and about the final third or so, daily use. And interestingly enough, the question of how about Gen AI like ChatGPT, Copilot, and Gemini, a lot of them said very little, and some use. And we've got a few here who've actually been playing with it and play with it every day. We also noticed that there are some agencies that have yet to allow them to use Gen AI. Over time, this will change, of course, but obviously that means that a lot of things have to occur within agencies. One of the major concerns for most every agency that we've spoken with, and government agencies is the core of who we teach, has to do with security and making sure that it's safe and that nothing is in fact being compromised along the way. I did repost the handout for today, and we'll be going through that. We're on page 4. If you look down here in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, that's the page number that we are on. And so you can follow along. If you've got 2 screens, feel free to open up that PDF and follow along. There's a lot more information in that handout than we're going to be able to cover in this short hour. And we're also available for questions along the way. So let's talk about our program. We were approached by CPS HR to build a program that was designed specifically for professional data analysts to really step up their ability from the big picture of using data, manipulating data, utilizing AI to inquire and fine-tune data, and then finally presenting it in a way that creates buy-in, and then operationally using it. This is not a course in Power BI. It's not a deep dive into dashboarding. There's other programs that are being offered that do a great job of that. These are all the other skills that seem to be missed along the way. The program is designed to start with what is, and it works with people who are highly skilled in data analysis and who have very little experience. We approach all of it, and there's a full range for everyone. So we start with data analytics. What is it? We move into the next class, turning data into useful information. We like to think of data as bricks and a wall or a house as useful information. We want to take those bricks, which could be this huge, enormous pile, and think about how much data we have nowadays. Data overload is very real. We have so much data. Now the question is, how do we make it useful? That's the focus of class 2. In class 3, leveraging AI, we do a deep dive into that experience. We'll be talking a little bit more about that today because that's kind of the heart of the program. Class 4 is really powerful. People really enjoy this class. How do you take your data and then present it in a way that gets buy-in? And we give you some really powerful tools to help you get that done. Class 5, using information to drive action and accountability is, okay, you've done your research. You've done your analysis, you've presented it, and the boss comes back and says, great, make it so, number one, make it happen. What do you do now? So that's what class 5 is about. How do you take that tool set, that actionable data that you've created and turn it into something that actually works? And how do you track accountability? So let's do a little bit deeper dive, not much, just a little tiny bit into each of these classes. So in the intro to data analytics, we talk about data overload. How do we gather data? How has data utilization changed? And it has drastically in the last 20 years, hugely changed. We give you some solid concepts and terminology. Language is very, very important, and understanding core terms in data analysis. We go into Microsoft Forms. It's a great tool as part of the 365 suite to help you gather information. It's really unused a lot, and yet it is this wonderful tool that does a great job. We play with the basics, not a deep dive, but we go into and we spend some time looking at the 3 top AIs, ChatGPT, Copilot, and Gemini. And we find that between one of them, most people have access to at least one. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in a few minutes. Ethics is a theme that we talk through every class because there's a big challenge that we found, and I'll be sharing that here in a little bit. Certification program, what's in it, and then next steps. Class 2, turning data into useful information. That's really about, as I mentioned before, there's this pile of bricks. How useful is a pile of bricks as compared to, say, a nice brick house? A lot of difference. Interpretation is a challenge. The real thing that we need to look at is when we're interpreting data, are there biases? Have we looked at data hygiene? Do we have an understanding of what our audience wants? So we have to look at that. What is our audience? What do they need? What are their wants? What are their desires? What are their objectives? Are we meeting them? And then we take a look, what is it that we have as analysts that are available to us to look at the data? We'll play with Excel and we'll make some charts and graphs. And again, another unused tool. There's a lot you can do with Excel, and we'll have some fun looking at that. We'll talk about how do we take that data and turn it into relevant information points. The message you will constantly hear us say is less is more. How do we make that point across? And we'll start the process of learning how to use PowerPoint to really present our data. We go into more on that in class 4. Class 3, we understand the challenge and opportunities that Gen AI now gives us. These large language models are amazing. They're very, very powerful tools, but they do have their challenges. And we look at that in great detail. We go way down, we look at the terms, what we have as a positive, what we have as a negative. We look under the hood, and we talk about prompting. We spend a lot of time learning how to do proper prompting. We're going to spend a minute or two doing that today, but it's really how do we build that? And then we go into hands-on. And as much as possible, we want you to use multiple tools and we play with it. But if you only have access to one, that's fine. You've got no issue there. You will be able to run the class with just one Gen AI tool. If you have access to none, you probably want to skip this class. All right. What can you do with AI? You can improve your data gathering efficiency. You can become more effective with what you gather. AI can give you suggestions on areas of gathering data. Once you've done that, you can actually use it to analyze the data and give you wonderful insights, things you hadn't made correlations before. One of the things you want to think about when you think about, well, what is Gen AI? It is a pattern matching tool. It's a correlation tool. It looks for threads of comparative information through whatever it's looking at. And it does it in ways that would take perhaps a human a lot longer. And it allows us to use those skills to then turn around and say, here's the information we're really looking at, or gee, we didn't even recognize that outlier. So all of that's in there. We then use it to enhance our presentations. What can we do to get to the real heart of the matter, go into the key points? And again, we talk about ethics and AI. One of the biggest challenges that we have found is we have yet to see software out there that is able to programmatically understand ethics. It's really interesting, and it doesn't really understand the difference, and so there's this challenge that we have currently. In 10 years, it's gonna be a different story, but right now, where do we have this challenge of AI? And you've probably all heard about this, hallucinating information. It will make up websites. It'll make up a really good story, and you think, "Wow, that sounds super." And yet when you go to fact check it, you realize, not true at all. So we talk about that. How do you validate that? Class 4, presenting data effectively. We start where the most important thing is in our mind, and that is, what is it that our audience needs? What does our audience want? We also touch on the challenge that we have a lot in a lot of government agencies. We've got generational approaches. We've got folks that have been around a long time, less time, and we've got 508 compliance that we have to take a look at. So we talk about that a little bit, but we really drill into the goals. We look through the lens of what is it that we want to do? What do we want to create? What do we want our audience to experience and feel? And we also want to make sure that we're able to properly describe what's going on. We can look at what we're recommending, our key points. We bring them down to just a few. Look at, gee, what is it that could challenge us in our presentations? A very important concept. A lot of people don't look at this. All right, I've got this wonderful program, stayed up late. I'm ready to go. The next day, I get one question and it derails me. How can I get ready for that? We do hands-on, doing more data graphics in Excel. We also go a lot deeper into PowerPoint, and we give you some templates, and we give you some great tools to create a presentation. And you work within a team within the class. You craft your presentation, and we'll use AI to actually enhance your data story. And then you learn about storytelling, and then you get to share with us your story. So it's a fun class. Class 5 is, again, as I mentioned before, all right, you've been given the green light. Your project is a go. We like what you have to say. Now what? So we look at it through the lens of project management. What does project management need? We're not suggesting you're the PM, but what do PMs need in order to get the job done? And so we look through the lens of key performance indicators, and we think through that in detail. We look at subjective and objective, and we understand that we need to create some kind of a feedback mechanism, and that's where a dashboard is really powerful. So we look through that, we play with it, we create some simple dashboards, and we look at how do we monitor then the data once it's being used, once people are doing things, whatever they're doing on the project, how do we monitor that? How do we take that data and bring it back? Where do we look for trends? How do we uncover trends? And finally, what's that feedback loop that we need to create so that we're looking ahead? We're thinking through all the phases of a project, and we're providing data as necessary. Class review, and then finally certification. So there you go. There's a high-level overview of the 5 classes that we're offering through CPS HR, and we'll show you a little bit later today how to sign up for that. And one more time, I just posted because I saw we have a few more new people. I wanted to get that workbook into your hands. We're on page 7. We're going to go ahead and move into page 8. Now, this is a very small excerpt of class 3 on demystifying AI. One thing I'd like to tell you, in our training programs, all of our Memory Spring programs are designed to balance training material, academic material, with hands-on practical experience. We have found it really important to us personally, and we have found that our students feel the same way. So we're going to give you a little bit of a taste on how we do that, how we run a training program by going through a portion of class 3. Now, in this class, we explore the world of AI and we look at its impact on data processing. So what is the goal of creating a generative artificial intelligence? It's a machine that can mimic some aspects of human cognitive functions. So it can learn, it can problem solve, it can look for correlations, it can create threads, it can summarize, it can expand. That's its goal. That's what we wanted to create with Gen AI. In order to do that, these machines are trained on vast amounts of data, so much data. It's unbelievable how much has to be poured into these tools for them to become aware enough of the information to draw the threads of training out. And in this 7-hour class, we look at the underlying features, the strengths and weaknesses of the top AI models, and we look through the idea of what is it that we're really going to get out of this tool? Now, you know that AI has often been portrayed as a magical solution that's going to solve everything. And also, sci-fi has painted it as an evil that will destroy humanity. Well, okay, so the truth is definitely somewhere in the middle and a lot more towards helpful tool. So we want to be able to understand the hype and the reality of AI so that you can utilize it effectively and stay ahead of it. We look at the top 3 tools that are available, we have found so far today to most of our different agencies. So we've got our 3 core Gen AI tools. We've got OpenAI's ChatGPT, Microsoft's Copilot, and Google's Gemini. We look under the hood in each one of these, and we've done a comparison of each one. So we look at this analysis and we look at the core tools to try to understand what is the difference. Do they have different features? Do they have different values? When would you want to use one versus the other? And there's a write up on that on page 11 in your workbook and your handout rather. And so you can take a look at that. We don't have enough time to go into it. There are some very core differences. And if you have the opportunity to play on these 3 platforms, what you'll find very quickly is that they do have a different style, a different feel, a different flavor, each one of them. And we're going to see that go further and further as each of these platforms grow and evolve. One of the things that we talk about in class 3 is how do you create a prompt? And we're going to play with that here in just a moment because crafting good prompts is both a skill and a science, and it's a balance. And the great news is that your AI will actually often reword your request and you can learn from it. You can look at it and go, oh, that's how it interpreted what I said. Gee, that's a better way of saying it. Or no, that's not what I wanted at all. You can also, interestingly, ask the AI for prompt building assistance. So don't be afraid to experiment. You want to practice with it, practice, practice, practice. Go through the process of taking a simple prompt and then slowly growing it. We talk about that in class 3, but we're going to do that today. So we're going to actually talk about how do you craft a prompt. And on page 12, it starts with this idea of defining the problem. What am I actually trying to get? What is the outcome that I want? Do I want text? Do I want a translation? Do I want an analysis? What do I want? I need to make sure I tell it very clearly and I've given it the data it needs. Now, these platforms, all 3 of them, have access to websites and large data sets. And so you can ask it about the information it has, but likely you need to provide it with data so it can properly analyze it. The next thing you want to do is start with a simple prompt. Begin with clear and concise statements. And as you get comfortable, you can make them longer and bigger. And most of the AIs can actually keep up with a pretty big prompt. It's kind of interesting. Make sure that your focus, however, is on clear outcomes. 1 or 2 words in your prompt can actually make a difference. Don't use abbreviations whenever possible. Don't use jargon. Details do count. If you're in doubt, spell it out. Take the time to wordily spell it out. And consistency is important too. So if you're in a conversation, which you can have one-off interactions with a Gen AI. You can also have a conversation. And in your conversation, you're going to want to be very consistent and use the same language all the way through. Play with it. You can take that same prompt and then write it, add a word, remove a word, add a sentence, add a bullet point, fine tune it until you get to that point where you go, hey, that's the answer. That's the outcome that I'm looking for. So lots of good things that you can do there. So let's go ahead and have some fun. We're going to do that. We're going to take it to the next level. We're going to look at how do I build a prompt and well, you're not going to build a prompt. We're going to actually give you some prompts to play with as a hands-on with data analytics. So let's dive in. So the question is, which of these do you have access to? Now I'm going to go ahead and drop the links in chat. You can also just click on the ones that are in your handout. So just click on those and see which one. Now you may need a non-work email to log in, particularly Copilot. They've tightened it up, and so Copilot will interact with you if you don't use your work. If you use your work email, it will want you to have a paid-for license. The free version of all of these 3 platforms work well. And so, yeah, you don't have to tell us which one you have access to. We just want you to have access to at least one. So you can figure out which one you have access to. And we're going to have some fun asking our Gen AI partner here some questions. And we're on page 13 in your workbook, so you can follow along right there. So the first question that we want to ask is going to help us to understand about prompts. So we're going to be putting in 4 different prompts and looking at the results. Now, if you've got access to multiple, go ahead and drop the same prompt into your different tools. But for most of us, we'll just focus on one. Now, when I build a prompt, I talk to it nicely. And so I always greet it. I say, "Hi, Copilot." And then I use the word please, and I say, "Thank you." That's just me. You can do what you'd like, but here's the prompt. And so my recommendation is take this prompt. You can copy it out of the book, the handout we've given you. You can copy it right here out of chat and paste it into the Gen AI that you have access to. And just notice what it says. Notice how it's going to give you 5 prompts that a government HR data analyst might use when querying a Gen AI. And it's going to also tell you what data it needs and explain to you why it's a good prompt. So go ahead and drop that in and read your results. And we'll discuss the answers soon. But take a look at that. And so you're beginning the conversation because we're going to stay with the same Gen AI. Don't close your browser between this, otherwise it'll restart the conversation. So just leave it open and go and read that and see what it says. Now, if you like any of those 5 sample prompts after this class, feel free to actually turn around and provide them back to your Gen AI and see what it says. You can also fine tune them, modify them a little bit, and it's just giving some different examples of things that might be of interest to you. Now, this first query is a general format, and you'll notice that you can just change the government HR data analyst to any person or situation that you might like. And so we're actually asking it how to ask it questions. All right, so let's go ahead and go to our second query. Query 2 is, and I put this in chat now as well, to share with us some innovative ways that HR professionals can recruit and retain employees in the government sector. Now, this isn't related directly to data, but it does come up with some interesting ideas. You can then turn around with that response and use it and figure out, well, what can I do if I'm a data analyst, for instance, to really get deeper into this and explore it with a little bit more fun and pizzazz? And does it need data? Why don't you just give us a little bit of a feedback in chat? Are you getting some interesting responses? Yes, no? You can just give us a thumbs up or an emoji or words. What do you think of those responses? Yeah, you getting them? Okay, good.
We're getting yeses, we're getting whoa, we're getting thumbs up. Lots of thumbs up. I like that it includes data needed to accompany the prompt.
It's really important. You can leave that bit out and it'll just tell you the prompt. But the problem is that unless you feed it the data that you want it to chew on, it'll just figure it all out by itself. And that may not be helpful and it may not be accurate. Now, these are short prompts, right? These are all short prompts. Here's where you're going to get to see AI do some heavy lifting. All right. So here is a much longer prompt, prompt 3. Now, again, you can copy it right out of the workbook or out of chat. Now, there's 2 ways to do it. We're going to do it this way first. Take this entire prompt and just drop it into chat. Oh, okay. Well, you get to play later, Rebecca. You'll have access to the workbooks, so they're all there. You can play with them later. So take a look at this giant prompt, drop it in and see if it actually answers each of these bullet points. So look through the prompt, copy, paste, drop it in, and you'll notice that it's looking at these specific areas: recruitment and retention, skills and experience, work arrangements, diversity and inclusion. And it's drilling into each one of these. So now the question is your Gen AI actually responding to each of these bullets? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is maybe not, then what you'd want to do is use that first question: please analyze key employment trends in today's government workplace over the past 3 to 5 years, and then just one. Focus on recruitment and retention, blah, blah, blah. Then ask that same top question again and add skills and experience and et cetera, so that you break it down into individual questions. Here's an interesting observation playing with Gen AI. It only gives you so much data. It will stop when it actually generates about the equivalent of a little over a page and a half on a Word document of results. It basically stops. And so if you feel like it is needing to give you more, or it's just running out, a very simple prompt is please continue, and it works. It will actually continue that conversation that you're having with it. So if you feel like there's not enough there, you can always put in the words, please continue, which takes us right to our next question, next query. And that is, we're asking it to now go back and look at its response and give us background for it. Give us background for it. Here, the link is, I mean, the prompt is now in chat. So the question that we're asking it is, give us supportive data. We want to know, where are you getting that? And it's going to show you links, and it's going to show you references and things like that. You can also, in your prompts, you can also add this kind of an additional statement. So you can say, for instance, if we backed up to, what are some innovative ways that HR professionals can recruit and retain employees in the government sector, and then add another sentence that basically is this: please provide supportive data and sources for your response. You'll see a deeper dive. You'll see links, you'll see references, you'll see your books, and that's a good opportunity for you to really understand, am I getting accurate data? Because when you click on those links, if it goes to some 404 page, you realize that it actually is either using old information, which is possible because websites do change over time, right? Or it isn't giving you the actual data, or it made it up. I kid you not. So one of the things that we have to think about is, whenever we get our data back, we have to be very careful. We need to put our data detective hat on and be skeptical. Be skeptical. So we want to make sure that when we're looking at these results, that we ask ourselves, did the AI's response address all aspects of the prompt, especially if it's a big one, right? Did it skip anything? Go back and look. Gee, okay, it really didn't do much on my second bullet point. So that's when you're going to have to re-ask the question in a way for it to say, okay, I can digest this better if you just extract it and pull it out and use just that beginning question and focus on this content. Plus, it could be volume. You have to realize that, like I mentioned before, only so much can be said in a page and a half. So what you're going to want to look through the lens of is, maybe it just ran out, and maybe I just need to use the please continue, or break it down into smaller chunks. What I have found, by breaking it down into smaller chunks, that seems to be the most effective way to do it. The next is data validity. Did the AI use the data you provided, or did it incorporate external data sources? The only way you're going to know that is by looking at the answers. And if it did use external data, was the source credible? And did it tell you where it got its information from? Very, very critical. You have to verify it. Don't take its word. Click on the links. See if you can actually find the content in the, assuming the web link works and it takes you to, a write-up. Is it a credible source? Would your stakeholders believe the data that it's taking you to? So you want to make sure that it makes sense. Apply common sense. Did it seem reasonable? Can you explain it to somebody else? If they say, okay, the Gen AI says the answer is blue, can you explain why blue is the answer? That's important, because if you get asked a question about the information and you're not able to back it up with data sources and a valid, solid base of information, you're back to the starting block all over again. Your brick house fell apart into a bunch of little data blocks. Finally, for me, it needs to be actionable data that's accurate, right? I want to make sure that I don't have any bias. And can AI bias a response? Yes. One way that, and it may not know. In fact, it often doesn't. But one way that it happens is when the data that you feed it is only data of a certain area. So let's say you're looking at transportation trends across a city. Well, if you only give it certain areas, then it's biased. It doesn't have information on all of the city or all of the county. And so part of the question that you have to look at is, am I, in giving it data, giving it a full representation of everything that's necessary? And you need to be aware of the fact that data analysts in 3D, without the use of Gen AI, can skew unconsciously. They may not know. They may say, well, this is what I'm doing with the data that I have. They're not asking the question, is there more? The fact is, there is more data. We know that. There's just an infinite amount of data. Is it all good data? No. So be careful. And then when we get to the final step, actionable insights, does the Gen AI's output, whatever that is, do you feel that will help you inform policy decisions? Will it help you inform your leaders to take good action? Can the results be actually communicated to your stakeholders who may not be familiar with AI in a way that they can digest it and they can take action? Because your audience, your stakeholders may include the public. So it becomes this interesting process of looking through the lens of your audience. Remember, we talked about that in one of our previous concepts of one of our earlier classes. It's a big question. What does my audience want? What does my audience understand? How technical are they? Am I going to be able to give them this information and find that they are able to move into action effectively? So we explored this. And so now our question to you is, was it educational and perhaps fun? And so I'm going to drop a link in chat here. We'd like to get your feedback on what you just experienced. So there's a link in chat, or you can use your smartphone and the QR code and take a couple minutes and tell us about your experience using Gen AI. And if you're not able to use it right now, that's fine. You can tell us later. We'll leave this post up for a while, for a few days at least. But we'd like to know, what was your experience of using Gen AI? Now, for some of you, again, it looks like you're experts in this area, and so this is something you do all the time. But we'd like to know from you, what was that for you? And we'll show you those results. We'll share those results here in just a minute, since we get everybody's answers back. Now, again, what we're doing today is giving you this little tiny snippet of our overall class that does a much deeper dive into all of these. The 5 classes collectively all will support you in getting a certification in data analysis and data analytics. You can take the classes individually. Some of the classes work really well as a standalone class, class 3, for instance. The other classes kind of build on the information that you've learned. And when you get into class 4, we do look to AI to give us some assistance in fine-tuning our presentation. So going through the classes in sequence of 1 through 5 is really helpful. And then, like I said, you're going to get a certification that comes from both Memory Spring and CPS-HR. So we've got 25 responses here on our Fun with Forms. Okay, thank you, Harriet. We appreciate that. And if you can't make one of the class dates, you can always pick it up. We offer multiple sessions of all 5 classes. I'll be sharing with you shortly here what our next set of sessions are and what the dates are, and then we'll have another set after that. So if you have to miss one, you can always pick it up in a future session. Yeah.
And we'll be looking at those dates here on the slide coming up.
So that's the cost conversation you have to have with Marissa.
The investment amount.
investment. Now let's take a look at our answers. So it took most people under a minute to do this. And which Gen AIs were you able to access during the class? So it looks like ChatGPT and Copilot 1 and 2. We did have some that said none of the above, but there's the mix. So ChatGPT, yeah, I had a feeling that ChatGPT would be most accessible. That's what we saw in some of our previous classes as well, because it's nonpartisan, so to speak. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how useful were the prompts? And it looks like some people felt maybe not so much, and others felt like they were really solid. So they were useful.
Yeah.
And on how were the answers that you received? So some felt not so useful, but most felt like they were very, very useful. And again, remember, these are just sample prompts that we fed you. You get to fine tune them. You can spend some time and tweak them and break them apart. But we wanted to give you a place to start. This is a good place to start. And don't forget, you can always ask AI. You can actually take any prompt that you want and start it with, please improve this prompt, and then give it the prompt, and it will tell you. Isn't that funny? And here's some responses. So we've got in our word cloud here, but I'll just pop through these pretty quickly. Thoroughly enjoyed the class and activities. Want to learn more. Very interested. Thanks for the opportunity. Great use. I use ChatGPT daily, so it wasn't new, but it was interesting to see the results. Oh, okay, cool.
Oh yeah,
Helpful.
comparing them.
Yeah. Understand how it works. Well, and for you who did that, wasn't it interesting? Do you notice that they have a very different flavor, all three of them, right?
Yeah.
They respond very differently. And that's because, and we talk about this in the program, that the underlying engine is built very differently. Just at a high level, ChatGPT is a very fluid, language focused program, just at a very, very high level. What Microsoft did with it is they started with ChatGPT 3.5, they adopted 4, but they used all of their own internal AI, which they've developed, and that's with Azure and all of the applications. I mean, these people, if you think about it, Microsoft knows how to write code. They write code like there's no tomorrow, right? Well, that's what they wanted the AI to do. So they trained it how to write code. If you want to write code, and you can write code with your Gen AI, Copilot is your tool. It's fabulous for that. What Gemini is it's built on a different engine. It uses its tensor flow, which I won't get into, but anyway, it uses a different core engine and it approaches it very differently. Don't forget that it also includes Google's information set. So the data that it has available to it pretty much is vast. It's huge. One of the projects, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, is that Google actually went back to a lot of books that were old and out of date, and they went through the process of digitizing them. Tens of thousands of books of digitizing all these old books that were out of date, and they used that as part of its process. And so its ability to do analysis is really amazing. Let's see, I use ChatGPT often. I use Copilot now. Do you enter prompts one after another, or how do you select a new topic? Okay, so that's a great question. If you look inside of your ChatGPT, once you've started having conversations with it, you'll notice that it will list the conversations that you've had. And one of the options should be a new chat or a new conversation. And that's over on the side. And in Copilot, unless you've got the paid license, if you're using the personal license, basically the conversation is restarted every time you reconnect with it. Although it will remember your conversations you've had in the past. Why is that important? When you click on one of those conversations that you've had with your Gen AI in the past, it will go back and read all of it. I use read colloquially. It will analyze all of it and it will recognize that that's the starting ground, the bricks on the bottom of the house that you want to build. And so it uses that to continue the conversation as best as it can. And I've learned that it works really, really well. And I use a couple of them that way. Okay, good. So yeah, have fun with this, folks. That's one of the whole ideas. We've appreciated your time with us today. And we will do a quick wrap here. Michael, would you like to review the webinar agenda?
Yeah, what we covered today was we did an intro to Data to Diamonds. We did the course overview. You got your hands all over Gen AI. We did the class review, obviously. And now we're going to look at the dates of the next session of Data to Diamonds courses. So 10/24 for the intro to data analytics, November 14th for turning data into useful information. Oh, October 10th is the intro to data analytics. November 14th for turning data into useful information. And then December 3rd for leveraging AI in the data process. January 9th for presenting data effectively. And February 13th for using information to drive action and accountability. So that gives you the dates of the upcoming courses. So sign up for the courses. You can you can email Training Center at CPS HR or call them. And if you go through all the classes, you get a certification. If you go through all 5 classes, if you cannot make one, which people had mentioned, based upon the dates, then make sure, you can always take that class in the next session, which is already scheduled in CBS's calendar. And it's a great investment in your future. It really is. It's informative, it's dynamic and engaging, and well worth your investment of time and effort and money. And now we're going to send it to Marissa for a Q&A, right? Is that what we're doing next?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's correct.
okay, Marissa, go for it.
All right, will do. So before we get into questions, I will do my wrap up. And to anyone that does have a question, please use the Q&A feature. You can also use the chat, but I prefer the Q&A just so your question does not get lost. First, I would like to thank Michael and Dr. Bud for that enlightening presentation. I think you guys all have wonderful information to go off of. And if you're interested in learning more, please sign up for the class. Our first session has sold out. The next session that they have been talking about, it's still enrolling. So please get your registrations in as soon as possible to secure your spot. Again, thank you, Michael and Dr. Bud. And then as a reminder to our attendees, this webinar has been recorded and will be available for replay on the CPS HR YouTube channel and our webinar homepage on our website. So be sure to check it out and share with your colleagues. While you're there, be sure to check out our other past webinars as well. At CPS HR Consulting, we're committed to partnering with government and nonprofit organizations. Our suite of services and products range from DEI, employee engagement, recruitment, training, test rental, class and compensation, and so much more. If you're looking to transform your organization, contact us today to see how we can tailor our services to meet your unique needs. Lastly, we invite you to share feedback on today's session. Please take a moment to complete our short survey that will appear after the webinar closes. Your thoughts help us improve our future webinars and tailor content to your needs. So thank you in advance for your time and insights. Once again, Michael and Dr. Bud, thank you. And to everyone who joined us today. Our next webinar is scheduled for August 21st on preparing your organization for the FLSA changes. So we hope to see you there. Now I will turn to Q&A. If we can't take, oh, that one disappeared.
I just answered it.
Excellent.
And yes, so I just want to do that. If we can't take it during the session dates, are there options for recorded sessions at a later date? We're not recording these classes. And the main reason is you felt a little bit of this. This is very interactive. It's very hands-on. within the class of 30, we break it down into smaller teams, and then you create interactions and engagement with your teams. So there's no opportunity to do that in a recorded session. Live is the only way that you're going to do that. Live online is the best way that we have learned as learners as well to engage and interact. So back to you, Marissa.
Thank you. Our next question that a couple people have regarding the courses. So Data to Diamonds course itself is the program. It is in 5 courses. It is $225 per course. And I will post in the chat here everything we've talked about today. Sorry, I forgot to do that.
And somebody wants the link also, Marissa, to the first
Yes,
class.
that is included in here. So the recording link, the direct link to register for Data to Diamonds, each course, and all other links too. And I will post that one alone just so you guys have that. So Topher and Tammy, I hope that answers your question.
Also, the information's in the handout.
That as well. And I will post the handout one more time so everyone has that.
And we know that once the course was made available, it sold out very quickly. So now that the second program, the second session is available, if you're really interested, get signed up ASAP.
And we have one more question. Who teaches the courses? Is it you two or do you have other partners?
It's the 2 of us.
Okay.
You get our high energy, enthusiastic selves.
I think that's what they want.
With humor, passion, energy, and lots of knowledge and experience.
We know Tammy enjoyed you too, so thank you guys.
And we make it fun.
Yes.
PHUN, fun.
And we work on spelling. And did you get that out of Gen AI?
No.
Oh, okay.
All right, last call for questions, and then we'll be wrapping up here. Going once, going twice.
We gotta leave. No.
All right. Thank you, Michael and Dr. Bud, once again, and thank you everyone who joined us today. We hope to see you next month. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you so much.
And I'll be in touch with you too. I'll shoot you an email, okay?
Terrific.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much.